When you think of Omega, you think Seamaster or you think Speedmaster. When you think of the Seamaster, you normally associate it with James Bond. When you think of the Speedmaster, Omega has made very sure that you think of the Moonwatch. Omega's marketing is always telling you about the history of how it went against all of these other big brands in the 1960s to become officially certified, how it joined Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong on the first steps on the moon in 1969. Also, when you think Speedmaster, most collectors will think of the ton of special editions that Omega releases roughly every 5 minutes to keep the collection interesting, while the main Moonwatch has remained largely unchanged visually for decades. That isn't necessarily a criticism, it's an homage to the original classic, and it is one of the most enduring designs, and it shows that they got it right. It is sometimes difficult to separate which are the really special editions and which ones are more like just marketing ploys. Time to time they do release a really special edition, and one of those is the Silver Snoopy. Now it may sound a little bit weird that this, with just a slightly different subdial and a nice case back, but broadly the same movement on the inside, costs nearly 10,000 euros more than this. However, with watches it's never that simple. So let's take a look at the Silver Snoopy and see why this watch is so special and why it commands such a premium over the regular Moonwatch. Now first we need to delve into the history a little bit of this to understand its context and understand why a watch that is seemingly the same as a regular Moonwatch, barring a subdial and a fancy case back, why this is more coveted and why this commands nearly 10,000 euros more than a regular equivalent Moonwatch. So when we look at the history, of course Omega has made sure that we're familiar with the story, that during the 1960s, Omega Speedmaster was selected amongst all of the other brands that were competing, including big names like Rolex and Breitling to name a few. They were the ones selected by NASA as the official flight certified watch to go to space. And then after that, 1969 came around and we saw the moon landing, which of course is famously marketed every 10 minutes by Omega because there was an Omega on the wrist of the astronauts as they first set foot on the moon. Now the Silver Snoopy Award is an award given to employees, external contractors, non-flight personnel for excellence and professionalism in contributing to manned spaceflight and the safety of those spaceflights and accomplishment of their missions. And the logo, of course, was designed by famed comic artist Charles Schulz, inspired by his classic character Snoopy from Peanuts. Now, if we fast forward to 1970, the moon landing has already happened. Omega has already capitalized on that. However, at the end of the day, the Speedmaster was just on their wrist. It didn't play necessarily a huge role in Apollo 11. However, in Apollo 13, it was a different story. Not only did this catastrophic oxygen tank explosion damage their life support systems, meaning they had to get back even sooner, it also threw them off course for their return to Earth. In addition to that, and more relevant to this story at least, it also damaged the onboard clock, which otherwise would have left the astronauts with no way to understand how they could do the precise timing of the 14-second ignition burn that they needed to get themselves back on track. A standard issue Speedmaster, very similar to the ones that you can still get today, was used to time that 14-second fuel burn that put them back on course and saved the astronauts' lives. Later in October of 1970, Omega was officially awarded the Silver Snoopy Award for their contribution to the success of Apollo 13. Fast forward 33 years, we have the introduction of the Omega Silver Snoopy for the first time. On the dial side at the 9 o'clock, you see the Silver Snoopy logo as designed by Charles Schulz, and on the back you see the logo again. And circling around it, you see it is the limited edition for the Silver Snoopy Award. Now this particular edition is limited to 5,441 pieces. The mission lasted 142 hours, 54 minutes, and 41 seconds. So that last part is where they get the number for how many pieces they released. And this was only released between 2003 to 2004. So it was a relatively short window for people to pick up this limited edition. Now, of course, it's long since discontinued. 2 more generations have been released, and arguably the second 2 generations get more attention. However, this is the original. And it started what was, at the end of the day, one of the first examples of an Omega Speedmaster selling over retail. Of an Omega Speedmaster as a hype watch, not just the alternative to a Rolex, which so many in the market tend to perceive it as. It showed that Omega can compete exactly on the same terms as Rolex does, and to this day, the Silver Snoopy watches are still highly coveted. It's very rare to see them. We here at CHRONEXT actually had the privilege of having all three at one time. However, unfortunately, we haven't had them all together at the same time since then to be able to shoot them. But our collection is always evolving, and right now we do have the privilege of having this Silver Snoopy Generation 1 in our collection for you to see. In addition to our huge selection of new, pre-owned and vintage Speedmasters, over 5,000 watches from all of your favorite brands, and of course special watches like this Omega Silver Snoopy Gen 1. So now that we know a little bit about the Silver Snoopy Gen 1, the question is it worth the extra 10K that it commands relative to a regular Moonwatch? I mean, that's subjective. On the one hand, you can get a watch that is very similar to the ones that the astronauts wore. On the other hand, you can get one that commemorates the huge contribution that Omega and the Speedmaster have had to NASA missions. And there's probably no better example than paying homage to Apollo 13 because it literally saved the lives of the astronauts. But let me know in the comments below, how special is that to you? Omega puts a lot of effort into marketing its connection to the moon, its connection to different Apollo missions. How important is it to you to have something that's connected to a specific mission like Apollo 13, an achievement like getting the Silver Snoopy Award, or any of the other Apollo missions, or do you just prefer the standard Moonwatch? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this short journey into the history of the Omega Silver Snoopy, then make sure you like the video and share it. If you want to see more videos about watches, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know when our next video comes out. And of course, we'd like to thank you for your time in joining us on this short summary of one of the most iconic watches in the modern Speedmaster collection. And we'd love to see you on the next one.